Hey there guys, this is Slamzeron, aka YouTube's Tasuke, and welcome to the Tales of Xillia 2 Final Thought video. You want to know a secret? I'm actually recording this one before the Xillia and the Rebirth one. But I wanted to go ahead and do this one since, as of the recording of this game, I have finished Xillia 2 a while ago, and of course I'm going to upload the Xillia 1 first, as you'll know by now, but yeah. And this is also the continuation of the new format where I show the anime opening and then go into gameplay. I feel like that's better. I can talk about more stuff. And this game, I feel like, I'm going to be honest, I feel like I kind of fell out of Tales a little bit. I felt like it was getting kind of stale. But I'll go ahead and say that this game rekindled my interest and excitement and faith in Tales, because it showed me that even though a series can have polish, it can still surprise you. And by polish, I mean like it's just constantly good. Like it can still surprise you. And I will get into that as I go into the review. But to starters, as you can hear with the opening anime cutscene, is that they kept the Japanese theme song for You by Ayumi Hamasaki. And I like this new trend of keeping the Japanese theme songs in the games. I feel like I just like hearing the Japanese theme songs. Like, as I've mentioned before on like my podcast and whatnot, I know I could just download the song, but that's not the point. I want to hear it in like the actual game. It has more value, and I like it better that way anyway. But this game, he plays Ludger, and it's interesting because I feel like with this game they wanted you to kind of roleplay as Ludger a little bit, and so they let you choose like some of the stuff that he says. And he's also a mostly silent protagonist. He does say some stuff like, yeah, what, sorry, he sighs, and oh crap. And there is one scene later on where he actually has like full dialogue. And of course you can get in the grade shop for no grade at all. Like, you can unlock his voice, but all it really does is just you choose your choice, and then it just plays an audio clip. But like, it doesn't show like another extra scene of him talking or anything. But, yeah. Coming off of Ys Memories of Celceta, which was the latest RPG I had played at the time, I kind of got a bit of an adult vibe from Ludger. I felt like I was able to roleplay as Ludger a little bit more in this game than I was at all in Memories of Celceta, even though he's a completely silent protagonist, except for his, like, battle cries, his attacks, and the occasional stuff he'll say when you just kind of sit around. But I feel like, I don't know what I think I think they wanted I believe Hideo Baba stated that like Xillia had a theme of choice as well as like role playing, so they wanted you to role play as not congestion. They wanted you to role play as Ludger. Voice acting, I think, is pretty good. I noticed that this game had a lot of Funimation voice actors. Like, for example, Ludger is voiced by Josh Grell, who you'll recognize as Yuki from Future Diary, as well as I think at this point Armin in Attack on Titan, among other things. Julius is J. Michael Tatum, who you'll recognize as, like, Jiro from Black Blood Brothers, and Zarbon from Dragon Ball Z Kai, and Kronos is Joel McDonald, and Beasley Bakur is Mike McFarland, of all people. But all the other the original Xillia cast, they return, and they do a pretty good job. The only two that really sound different to me, like, I think they all try to sound a little bit older and more mature, so their voice, I think, is a little naturally lower. And I feel like this is probably easier for Sam Riegel as Jude, because I feel like his voice is generally lower. I still think he does a great Jude. Elise, in particular, sounds a lot different, because she's older and more mature. She's come out of her shell a little bit. I remember in Xillia 1 that she sounded very, very scared. She sounded very cautious and very afraid and not very confident, like just how shaky her voice was. And just, I find it kind of interesting to we get to hear a little bit more of her. It's kind of like, when someone's just really shy and whatnot. You don't really get to see much of their personality, but once they open up, you do. And it's almost like an actor's representation of real life, and I find that very interesting. Though, I originally thought that her outfit was a school uniform, because I know she's going to school, Dracel's school. But it turns out she's just wearing nice clothes that Drusilla bought for her. One thing I did like, which is a bit of a fear that I had with the game, was that I was worried that like everyone was just gonna be in Olympias, but as it turns out, it's just like actually everyone's just been around the world, from what I can tell. I think the majority of the people are in Olympias, although I think Elise is just visiting right now, and Jude, I know, is just doing work, and obviously Mila comes in later. But and speaking of Mila, her lisp is gone in both versions, both the fake version and the actual Mila that comes back, which makes me think that in the first game, since she had a bit of a lisp, it made me wonder if she either got coaching or if it was intentional. I feel like it might have been intentional, because in order to be able to go back, to be able to get rid of it so quickly, because I imagine they started dubbing Xillia 2 relatively quickly. They at least had to, or they at least had to be like training the actors to make them better fit the roles for the sequel. I don't know, and I feel like, you know, it further shows the Tales series is polished, because that one complaint about Mila's voice, I know there are plenty of people who are like, ugh, I didn't even hear it, people need to get over it. It was definitely there. Or maybe it was just the audio quality, because they did kind of have like the S's did kind of hiss a little bit, and that might have caused the lisp a little bit. I can't really say for sure, because I don't work for Namco or their audio group or whoever. I think Cup of Tea did the dub, but the gameplay is basically is the same as Xillia 1. I'll say again, if I even said it in the first one, because I don't remember, plus I haven't talked about it yet as far as this recording's going. But I like how the whole base and arcane art thing doesn't really matter anymore. You can chain whatever you want, and I like that, because it makes forming up your combos more fun, and I feel like that that makes it more like a fighting game, because I feel like in fighting games it's not really about what can combo into what, it's more about how you can combo into what. And you kind of have to figure out what works best, because you can combo like whatever you want, but like you can, if you choose two bad arts, then it's like, well, that won't work. You need to choose a better combination. And I guess you could do that with the previous Tales games, but I still feel like you had a bit of a limit as opposed to, you know, to what you could do, because you still had to kind of pick like base and arcane arts. You couldn't just pick all base and just chain all of them. Unless you had the skill. But, and I like that, because I feel like it makes like picking what arts you want to use a bit easier. With Mila, I feel like I was able to kind of do exactly what I wanted with her and make her just full melee. They did give her one skill, or all of her melee base attacks shoot out like a projectile, and because of that, it kind of changed the way she fought. And I only noticed it until like, I noticed it like when I got the regular Mila back, and I got a little worried that that this was just the way the new Mila play. But and I checked in her skills, and there was actually a thing, and I disabled it, and then like, yay, I can do stuff now. And I like the way the mystic arts are done. Like how you can activate your partner's mystic arts. Like if you're linked with someone, you can activate their mystic art, and the overlimit you don't have to. And I think that's useful, because like if you want someone to use their mystic art, you can link with them and then like do their mystic art. And of course, if you have like the two-person mystic art skill activated, you can do like a double one to do like even more damage. I think there was even one where I reached like, I think 10, like over 10 or 9,000 damage, and I was like, cool. Difficulty, I feel like it's standard Tales game. It's not really that hard. In fact, I feel like this game was actually a little bit easier, with the exception of a few bosses, like Victor in particular. I found him kind of tough, and Beasley Bakor, the final boss, I kind of struggled with him. I would get kind of close, and I actually put the game on easy for that one fight, because I felt like, you know, it was too hard, and I didn't really want to keep grinding and, you know, get to like level 90 or whatever. I was at level like 60 at the time, so I felt like I would have been able to do it pretty well. And I probably could have done it, and I was able to make up for putting it on easy, because it was one of those fights that kind of happens multiple times in this game, where another character will do a Mystic Art and like nearly kill you, but you're supposed to follow up with your own Mystic Art, and then you get to one-shot them. I missed my mark with the final Beasley Bakor fight, so I had to fight him a little bit more and re-get the fourth form of the Chromatus, which is like Ludger's little transformation thing he can go into since he's a Kresnik, and he uses it to like destroy fractured dimensions, which I like the whole transformation thing because it kind of reminds me of like a shonen anime where like a character will have like a super special attack or like a special form they could turn into, like for example like Goku's Super Saiyan, or for another example for the attack like in Dot Hack Legend of the Twilight, Shugo's Data Drain. I kind of like that, and I used Falling Snow a lot, and it was kind of cool to kind of go into that like in a pinch, or when you wanted to like finish off an enemy. I felt like this game was like very combo heavy because I would link up with someone, mainly Jude. He was like the main person I linked up with, and because of that, a lot of like linked arts were activated. So I did a bunch of them. Then did my Mystic Art, or had him do his Mystic Art, and then I'd go into my Chromatus form, and I would do my Chromatus Mystic Art, and that would do a heck lot of damage, if not kill the enemy. One problem I didn't really like with the Chromatus thing, I found it very hard with bosses to do like some like regular attacks and then chain into the Mystic Art. I felt like I had to make a decision of whether I just wanted to spam Falling Snow over and over, or do an actual combo, or do my Mystic Art. I felt like I had to make a decision. I guess that kind of goes along with the theme of choice, or whatever. But I don't know. I didn't really like that much, and beside like maybe a bit of the difficulty was probably the really issue. I still think the game is really polished. With this game taking place in Olympias and being in the future by like a year, there's a bit of a theme of like modern stuff, and like a lot of characters are wearing like suits, and a lot of characters have like cell phones or GHS, which I think may have been a play on GPS, and of course Ludger's ringtone happens to be Eternal Mind from Tales of Eternity, and I actually have that on my computer. I'm trying to figure out how to, if anyone can tell me how to take an MP3 and turn it into a ringtone on an iPhone, please let me know, because I would love to have that as my ringtone. Moving on, I guess, to the music. Music was good. It was standard stuff. I liked it. I don't think really any tracks really stood out to me.
We have no limits.
Let's see. The story, I feel like, is where this game kind of took a big turn. This is where it kind of took the polish and sort of like, oh, you feel like Tales games are kind of boring. Well, here, I'm going to do something different. This, for one thing, the story, like, Ludger, there's a bunch of, like, fractured dimension stuff going on, and then Ludger ends up getting hired by the Spears Corporation, starts rising up and kind of taking Julius's place, and it turns out they're trying to destroy fractured dimensions, and the plot thickens as things go on, and Elle wants to go to the land of Canaan. She wants to see her daddy, who's Victor, who ended up nearly killing everybody. Turns out he's a fractured future version of Ludger, where he killed everyone, including Elise, and that made me very upset. This game kind of tugged at strings, in my opinion, honestly, particularly with the character quests, which I hate to say it, I will admit I like them better than the main story. I kind of wish that I could just learn more about the characters, and I feel like that's sort of where sequels for really big stories kind of come in handy, and kind of are where their whatchamahoosit comes into play, because you get to see these characters and like how their life continues off the after the the last page, if I can use books as a metaphor. And with Jude, he's trying to figure out this whole coexistence with spirits and humans, And one of my favorites with that one is like this whole thing with the Asuka, the spear, and it's like a gay version of him, and he wants to tether with Jude. And it's kind of funny because like Jude's like breaking up with him. He's like, we can't really do it. And he's like, why? I bet it's her, isn't it? And the that's also in these. I feel like the writing also kind of shine. I really like the writing too. Like there's one scene where a character says like it would say like don't, essentially saying don't mess this up. But instead of don't screw it up, he says don't futz it up. And I feel like that's a good example of like, it's obviously punching up the dialogue a little bit, but it was done in a good way. Even though I've never heard the word futz used before, like don't futz it up. And I think they wanted to kind of have it have more power because obviously they can't say don't fuck it up. They could have said don't screw it up. I don't know, I felt like the writing in this game was actually very good. Like, the way characters talked sound very natural. The way the skits were really fun, especially the ones where you have to make a decision. I like those, and I always would try to figure, like, okay, what... with Ludger, I tried to play him off as sort of like the nice guy. Like, there was... as well, he was trying to be a parent to Elle. And, like, there was a... for example, there's one where she kind of runs off, and you have a choice of either saying, like, you had me worried sick, and then, or, like, he's like, don't run off like that again, or you had to say, oh, you had me worried sick, and I chose the had you worried me sick, because I'm like, I don't want to be, like, a mean person.
Right on point. Yeah.
And then, of course, another one is, like, where, it's after you kill Victor, because, spoiler alert, you kill Victor, Nova keeps bugging you about your debt. By the way, Ludger has debt. I'll get to that later on. And you have choice of saying, you think I give a damn about money after I just killed myself? Or saying, right, I got it. And I chose the right, I got it. So basically, like, it was a bit of a mix of L1 and R1, though it was mainly L1, because you use the shoulder buttons to make your decisions. And I found that kind of interesting just from a controller standpoint, because they're on two different sides. So it's almost like putting your hand down on a button in like a game show when you make your decision. But like with the character quests, they really kind of tug at some strings. And early on with Mila, since it's the fake Mila, it's more about getting Elle to like her and like her cooking. And later on with the real Mila, it's more about figuring out like Mila's origins. And you learn that Maxwell created Mila in the image of this girl she liked called Ludger Kresnik, an ancestor of Ludger and Julius, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I found it interesting how they kind of tie everything together, since you learn about it in a fractured dimension, and with the character quests, a lot of times you go to like a fractured dimension, and since I kind of consider them like they're like basically an alternate universe, like different things that could have happened. And so I kind of took it with a grain of salt at first, but I guess it was considered canon because it's kind of like the whole Dragon Ball Z Trunks time machine theory, where like when you go back in time, it makes a split to like an alternate universe. So it's not really like a different timeline, but it's more like a different universe, like an alternate dimension. And I know, and like for example, there's one with Leia, like where she actually saved Agria. And like she addresses her by name, and like she's working on the whole journalism thing, which I find it interesting. I feel like it's a fine thing because I feel like, you know, in the first game I felt like she was kind of, what she was trying to do is like she was following Jude, and at the end of the game she starts doing the whole waitress thing, and I feel like the reason why she went that route is because she didn't want to just follow in Jude's footsteps. Though I think why she went to journalism was because she wanted to kind of make her own thing. She wanted to kind of make something that was hers. And I guess because of that, her personality and motivation may come off as unnatural, because she's just kind of jumping into this random thing. I feel like Dragon Age 2 has like a similar problem. But you know, I don't know. I feel like I kind of understand why. I think it would have been better if she had done just like the waitress thing, and maybe she had like, instead of like a journalism outfit, she wore like a waitress outfit. not like a waitress uniform, but like just some sort of outfit. I feel like, I guess one complaint is that I feel like everything kind of seems to focus in Olympias a little too much. It's more like with Riza Maxi, it's more like this mystical place you get to go to. It's almost kind of like Tales of Eternia, where like, you know, Inferior is this cool place, but then you get to see Celestia, and it's just a better place than where you're currently at, I guess. But that's just the way I see that. So then there's another one with if Zhao was Elise's dad. That was one of the later ones I did. Like, she became Elise's dad. And this one plays with like a lot of different, like, refighting bosses. Like, there's one where you refight Noctigal. He was a pretty major boss, and there's one where you fight the entire Chimeriad except for Gaius, because he's in your party, you see. And you get cool costumes and stuff from doing them. Like, I know for Gaius, I use his final boss costume, because I like that one. And with Alvin, you know, he's got his beard, but you can also get his costume of him without his beard. And I think that's kind of cool. But, and of course in that one, you get that one from where you go into an alternate dimension of where he had proposed to Pressa. And you actually get to fight Alvin. And it's kind of funny, you get to fight Alvin with Alvin, because you have a set party that you have to take of like 1 to 2 people, and then like the other person you can just pick whoever. But you have like an affinity and like relationship thing, and of course on mine Jude is probably like my highest person, and so because with that, with like the EX dungeon, I can only take Jude. I don't know if you can take more people. I really hope you can, because that would make the EX dungeon a lot easier. It's kind of funny, after I've beaten the game, it does the same thing that, you know, Tales games have been doing lately, where they let you continue where you left off with some bonus stuff. But I feel like the EX dungeon has gotten a lot harder, and I really want to unlock the Crest and Ston fight, but from what I understand, it's actually a very hard fight, even on easy. And like their base stat is like 99 or like 999 or whatever. And I'm a little nervous, but my main I kind of want to hear them talk and whatnot, because I want to hear their new voice. I am aware that both of them are new people. It's no longer John Young Bosch's Crest or Liam O'Brien as Ston, which I guess I'm okay with, because I feel like John Young Bosch was a okay Crest, but I feel like they probably could have picked someone better. The costumes I feel like are nice, like, you know, like I said, with the old characters you can unlock their old costume. I feel like Xillia 2 did the sequel the best way it did, better than Destiny 2 and Dawn New World, because like Destiny 2, they update the designs of the old characters, even if they only give you Leon back as Judas. With Symphonia, they don't update the designs, but they let you have everybody. With Xillia 2, they do both. They update the character designs and give you everyone. And unlike Dawn New World, you don't have to keep Ludger in your party at all times. Unless like you're doing the debt stuff, then you have to keep him, because you know you're trying to pay off your debt. I guess that's one thing I didn't really like, was because like I felt like that I had to do side quests in order to get more money. I didn't really care too much about, you know, the side quests, personally. I wasn't really that interested in the side quests. Honestly, like, I just wanted to play through more of the story and the character quests. I really enjoyed the character quests. And, because I like, you know, the emotional thing, and with a bit of the story, there's a bit more emotional stuff going on, like with the whole thing with Mila. I actually went back and redid my choice, because I didn't like just sort of dropping her in the sacrificial pit to summon Mila Maxwell, the real Mila, because I let go like just kind of immediately, but she looked kind of shocked, like she was like, "Why did you do that?" And I'm like, but then of course it's funny because I do the other one, and it's like I can save you, and she's all like, "No, don't save Elle," and I'm like, and then let goes. And with Julius, with the Julius fight, I went pretty far with the I can't. I just can't do it. And from what I understand, that's actually the second ending, or the bad ending, which I'm glad I didn't do. I got the normal ending from what I understand. And maybe eventually I'll pay off all the debt and do the extra ending where Cress and Ston just kill the final boss for you. Which I feel like is kind of fitting because, you know, they're so powerful. Of course, if you can beat Cress and Ston, who can beat the final bosses pretty easily for you, you probably don't need their help. I guess it's more for the convenience. You know, I think that's a cool touch with Ludger, since you're supposed to be kind of role-playing as him. You can get skins, and that includes skins of like other characters, other Tales characters. For some of them, you can do Ston. And I got Ston, so though I kind of wish they had done a little bit more with it, with the whole, like almost like it's like a separate character altogether. Because if it's with all characters who fight in battle, or like do it with like some, or like you can get like an EX mode, an EX version of it that costs more, where it turns you into that character completely, which I think would have been cool. I would love to play as Ston in Tales of Xillia 2. Now I just kind of turn into Ston using dual blades because I only use the dual blades. You can use others like the dual pistols or the twin pistols and the hammer, and I sometimes use the hammer. I very rarely use the twin pistols because they were too slow, and I felt like Ludger ran too slow, and I just used the dual blades. I was more comfortable with them, and they do pretty good damage if you later on or throughout the game. Like, they're pretty, I don't think they're broken, but they're pretty powerful. Another way this game kind of tugged at my strings is with the whole Victor thing. That's probably the most heart-wrenching one for me, or one of the most, because I feel like, you know, Victor, he kills off the entire cast, including like the entire Xillia 1 cast, and he also kills off Julius and Beasley. And that's where he kind of hints that Beasley, one, has a chromatus and is to Ludger and Julius's dad. And the reason why I kind of tugs, like the verbal and word and wordage or whatever imagery of their bodies being thrown into the river. And then the visual imagery of showing a very decaying, dirty, dead T-Bone. Like, oh my goodness. Like, I think that one kind of got me because it made me sort of realize, this guy killed Lise. He killed a child. And that made me upset, and I'm like, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. I like the way the food system works. I feel like it really helps with, and whenever I'd go to like a big battle, I would always buy like 2 or 3 of the veggie sticks so I could beat the boss with them. But you know, that's this game really kind of tugged at my. The other one is when you kill Julius, and that's an anime cutscene. And I think part of what kind of hurt was that he was doing the humming song, like the. That really kind of tugged. Like, that was probably one of the most heart-wrenching. Like, oh my goodness. Like, I thought I felt really bad for Elise. Like, no, this game like tugged at more strings than Symphonia or Xillia 1 did, or any other Tales game has ever done. This game really tugged at my strings, and I think that's why I'm kind of back into Tales again, quote unquote. I never really left the Tales series, but in my big like Mizuho like thing that I wrote, one of the things that I mentioned was that I felt like the series was starting to get a little stale because it's so polished. But here with Xillia 2, with the story, they really threw a lot of curveballs, and they took a few risks, and I felt like that made it a stronger game because I felt like they succeeded with it. And you can definitely pair it with Xillia 1. I feel like it's kind of hard to tell, but I still feel like they were at least planning a sequel by the time the first game was nearly done. And, you know, they said with Xillia 1 that it was rushed Though with this one, I felt like it wasn't rushed at all. So, yeah. That's what I think about Xillia 2 as far as I can remember. Overall, I really liked it. Very good polish, very good story and writing and voice acting and everything. The skits were really fun. I really liked the whole thing with Muse, where Ludger gets that ring or that bracelet where he can hear her voice. And it's kind of funny because Muse kind of presents herself as sort of like this orderly, or like this very calm woman, but then you actually hear her talk in her in like her inside, or like you get to hear like what she actually sounds like in her mind or whatever. It's like she sounds like a child, and it's funny because of the way the audio works, like, and because the higher pitch, her voice kind of pops a little bit, particularly in like skits and whatnot, and it kind of catches me by surprise sometimes because I'm not looking at it, and so I hear the voice like, oh, what? And there are bonus scenes that you get depending on like how high your affinity is, and I think that's kind of cool because it adds more to the story. But yeah. I can't really think of anything else to say. Overall, this game was really, really good. It was well polished. The writing, voice acting, and story were good. I was interested in it. I preferred the character quest more than I did the main story, but the main story just kept kind of tugging at me and made me sad. I felt like sometimes the game got a little too difficult sometimes, even on normal, especially since they have moderate now. But, and I felt like the whole debt system got kind of annoying at times because I felt like it made the game a little too long and it broke up the action a little too much, even if it gave me the opportunity to do character quests. But it wasn't too bad. But I don't know, I almost kind of feel like that 20 million gold was a little too much. Or, no, yeah, I think either 19, no, yeah, 20 million. It was originally 19, but because of the whole vet stuff, it ended up being 20. And I was wondering if you beat up Rideau and he ends up dying, if like your debt's gone, because technically, he owes money to Rideau, does he not? He doesn't have to pay off. Like Ludger has to pay, because Rideau was the one who paid for all the expenses. But
This is my duty.
Well performed.
But I mean, why does Ludger have to repay the company? Like, they still got money. Unless he just gave them, like, just a giant loan. Oh.
My apologies.
Like, I don't know. I felt like after beating Rideau, you shouldn't have had... I mean, they kind of worked it out by, like, making it to where, like, oh, you don't have to pay it in, like, increments anymore. You can just, like... you can just, like, pay it whenever you want. And that's pretty useful, because if you rack up on money, then you can just focus on... You can just focus on paying off the rest of it, and I might actually do that later on, just so I can get that extra ending. But, yeah. That's really all I can think about to say on this game. It's really good. If you haven't played it, you should definitely check it out. And, yeah. This is Slamzarani Keiji Sasuke signing out. See you later.